for any kind of an intelligence claim for a system, let's say a conventional or animal or an unconventional system, we're basically taking an IQ test ourselves. And we as observers are saying we've identified or failed to identify some problem space, some set of competencies, and therefore we can make an estimate of what the intelligence of that system is to solve these problems. But that's us taking an IQ test because we are probably missing quite a bit. I'll give you a couple of very simple examples of these kind of unconventional problem-solving capacities. So here's an example with planaria. So we take these flatworms and we expose them to barium chloride. Barium blocks all potassium channels. It's a non-specific potassium channel blocker, as a result of which their heads explode. The cells are very unhappy at not being able to transfer potassium. Their heads explode. If you leave them in the barium, a couple of weeks later, they grow a new head. And the new head is barium adapted, no problem. The new head has no problem with barium. So we asked, this is really crazy. We asked, how is this possible? What's different about this new head that it can function in barium where this one cannot? And so what we did was we looked at all the genes that were expressed here and all the genes that were expressed here. And of course, it doesn't have to be in the genes. It's an easy technique that's available. And we simply asked, what's the difference? And the difference is only about a dozen genes are different. So out of the space of tens of thousands of possible genes, these cells identified exactly what they need to solve this physiological stressor. Now, the key point here is that planaria never see barium in the wild. There has never been an evolutionary selection pressure to know what to do when you encounter barium. This is an example of solving a novel problem. You're hit with a physiological stressor, the cells are dying, what do you do? I sort of visualize this as being in this nuclear reactor control room, the thing's melting down, there's a million buttons. What do you do? How do you know which thing to press? Because you don't have time to just randomly turn genes on and off. You don't have time for selection the way you might in a bacterial colony. You don't have time for gradient descent. How does the system know? So this is a kind of problem solving of navigating transcriptional space, meaning the space of possible gene expression levels, to solve problems in physiological space. There are many other competencies. For example, if you study gene regulatory networks, you can find that in fact, they have six different types of learning where turning specific nodes on and off can give them memories that change the way they act in the future, including, for example, associative conditioning. So you can do Pavlovian conditioning on gene regulatory networks. So not only are tissues and organs and cells have these competencies, but in fact, the pathways, the molecular networks inside of them also have cognitive kind of capacities such as associative learning, habituation, sensitization, and so on. And so one thing that we think about a lot is this idea that evolution might actually be pivoting over time some of the same strategies, some of the same navigational policies for traversing these kind of spaces into novel spaces. So you keep the policy, you just change the sensors and effectors, and you can reuse the same types of intelligence that you might have for solving problems, and you can reuse them in novel spaces and of course grow them up. And so this goes all the way up through, for example, navigating linguistic space, where keeping a constant narrative through telling a story is actually a navigational task that's quite hard. Artificial intelligences today are quite limited in the how long they can maintain the train of a story. So all of these things share some important properties. Okay, so that's the kind of the first part of the talk. The next thing I want to do is really talk about a particular unconventional agent.